Hi everybody, it's Andy, and welcome to Hawaiian Shirt Friday at my office. Today what I want to go over is a question that I get probably not all the time, but often enough I think that it warrants a video going over the solution. So the question I get is this: Andy, how do I get forms? If you go to court in California, you inevitably will have to fill out a form of some kind, most likely quite a few forms. This is the same regardless of whether or not you're going for a divorce, child custody thing, eviction lawsuit, whatever. You'll inevitably have to fill out a lot of paperwork. Most people will get the forms from the court or from the public library or something. There'll be a wall with a rack on it, and you can just pick and choose whatever forms you want. That's great, except people will inevitably get too few copies. They'll get one or two, but when they go to fill it out, they make a mistake and they're going to white it out or cross it out in pen or something. So the form ends up unfortunately looking like quite a mess when the person's done. So the problem is very easily solved actually if you would just get an extra copy or two, or just have a blank form that you can kind of refer back to whenever you needed it. The solution to this problem is like everything that we talk about, not hard at all, especially if you can get online. So tell you what, why don't we get online right now and I will show you how to do it.
Okay everybody, so the first thing you want to do is open up a web browser and go to a search engine. So I've opened up Firefox here and I've gone to Google. You don't have to use Firefox, you don't have to use Google, but regardless of what browser and engine combination you use, what you want to look up is this. It's Judicial Council Forms. If you're using Google and it suggests a variety of things, ignore all the suggestions for right now and just look up Judicial Council Forms. If you do, the first link that should pop up is this Browse All Forms link, and it's from the website www.courts.ca.gov/forms.htm. So go ahead and click on that, and that brings you to this page run by the court system of the state of California. So what you're interested in here is this kind of middle section right here where it says Browsing Form Files on California Courts. So there are three options here for you to actually find the form that you're interested in. I'm going to go over all three of these, and depending on your situation, hopefully you'll find one of them more helpful than the other. So this first option here is to basically use this drop-down menu, and what you see when you open the drop-down menu is a variety of categories of forms. So, for example, if you have an adoption case, there's an adoption category. If you have a civil harassment case, there's papers for that. Domestic violence prevention, for example, if your husband or wife or boyfriend, girlfriend, or whoever is abusing you, then you have forms for that, and those forms are available in English, Chinese, Korean, Spanish, Vietnamese, etc., etc. What else is there that I can show you? If you have a family law case, depending on whether or not it's a child support thing or a divorce thing or something, you have a variety of forms for those, and those are actually quite common. There's 8 or 9 categories here. If you have a case involving a name change, there's papers for that. If you have a probate, like maybe somebody passed away, there's papers for that. Small claims, there it is, small claims court, you have papers for that. Traffic court, and wage garnishment, unlawful detainer, etc. So this is actually a fairly easy way to do it. However, you do need to know the category of the form you're looking under. So for example, let's say that you know that you want a form that's entitled expense declaration. However, you don't really know what category that form falls under. Like maybe it's a domestic violence form, maybe it's an adoption form, maybe it's a civil harassment form. You really have no idea, and you have to basically try all those categories until you find the form that you're looking for. If you're going to do it that way, you may want to consider doing it, or if you need a form like that, you may want to consider doing it the second way, and that is actually all forms listed by name. So let's go ahead and open that in a new tab, and once it opens, well, I'll show you how it looks, I guess. So here in this view, you actually have all the forms the state of California puts out, and as you can tell, there's quite a few. So this can actually be kind of confusing unless you kind of know the actual name of the form you're looking for. So if you do, you can go to your browser and do a find. In Firefox, for example, it's Control F. And if you know that you're looking for an expense declaration, just type in expense declaration, and hopefully out of these, let's just say there's 900 forms here, hopefully only 4 or 5 of those will have the words expense declaration in it. The way that it's organized right now, this view right here, is it's alphabetical by description. So the thing is, this first form is ADR information. ADR is alternative dispute resolution. And then the next couple forms here are abandonment of appeal, adoption agreement. What else is there? Application for renewal of judgment, case information, caregiver information, and so on and so on. So that's that's the second way of doing it. So let's go ahead and close this tab and go back to the original kind of screen that we were on. So the third option here is all forms listed by number. And let's go ahead and open that in a new tab. And this actually looks very similar to option number 2 that we just went over, except now it's actually listed alphabetically by form number. So before, it was listed alphabetically by description, this kind of column on the right here, but now it's listed alphabetically by form, so the column on the left. So this first form is an adopt 50, and then the next form after that is an adopt 200, adopt 210, and so on and so on. So if you know the actual form number, let's say that you know that you need an APP 008, then this could be a really kind of fast way of going to find that form real directly. So once you actually have the actual form, once you've actually found the actual document that you're looking for, how do you actually download it and fill it out and so forth? So for illustration's sake, let's go ahead and find an FL100. That's the form that you use to initiate a divorce in California. So where is it? Right here. So FL100. And if you can see this little Adobe PDF kind of icon here, so if you go ahead and open this in a new tab, it'll download the form as a PDF, and you basically can just print it out from here. You can type in it, etc., etc., depending on what your situation is. So one real kind of cool thing about all these forms that the state puts out is that over here in the upper right, it has a form number. So this one's an FL100 form, and over here it says FL100. If this was a FL110 form, it would have FL-110 up here. If it was a schedule of assets and debts, it would have an FL-142. So one thing I do recommend is basically not writing these forms out by hand, like ballpoint pen if you can, because it ends up being fairly hard to read. So one thing that can actually make your case go a little bit faster is if you go ahead and type it out as best you can. So that is basically how you download these forms. So I mean, it's something that you can save, print out again. If you have the ability to type it in Adobe Acrobat, for example, then you can go ahead and do that. I am going to also go over how to apply the same kind of idea to other forms as well. So stay tuned. Okay, everybody. In the last section of this video, I went over how to get forms for use in California State Court. And the bottom line is that a lot of the forms that you see used in court are actually available on the internet as PDFs. So if you can just find a computer with a printer, you can go ahead and print out as many of these forms as you like. And if it's possible, I recommend that you go ahead and type as many of these forms out as you can versus writing them out by hand. Because if you fill stuff out by hand, people's writing is really hard to read sometimes, even if you don't intend it. And if a form can't be read properly, then sometimes it's processed incorrectly, things are spelled wrong, cases take longer to do because you have to go back and fix mistakes and stuff. So if you can, go ahead and type them out whenever you can, and if you can't type them out for whatever reason, then go ahead and get online and download whatever forms that you need. That idea of basically going online and downloading forms, that actually applies to other areas as well. So to illustrate, one of the other things that I do is immigration law. So immigration law, also requires a lot of forms, and how you would get those is basically to Google the different form numbers that you need. So for example, let's say that you wanted to get an I-130 form, so USCIS I-130. If you go ahead and Google that, the first hit that you pop up is from the USCIS website. So it's uscis.gov/I-130. And that form, if you're not familiar with it, is a form to get a green card for an alien relative. So it's called Petition for Alien Relative. If you open that in a new tab, You come to this site, and that's maintained by the U.S. CIS, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration, and it goes over all sorts of stuff about this particular form. So the form itself is right here. There's an instruction kind of like packet that goes with it, and there's also a variety of companion forms or accompanying forms that sometimes you might need. So if there are forms like that, they would be linked right here also. So this kind of format is pretty common to pretty much all the forms that USCIS puts out. And you have a purpose section, like it goes over why you would want to fill out this form, how long the form is and how long the instructions are, the version number, as well as where to actually file this form. And also, of course, the inevitable filing fee, as well as any kind of special instructions that, this particular form might have. So if you happen to know that you need an I-130, you can go here and basically download the form. And here you go. So if you download the form, you can, of course, fill it out by hand. But if you can, I highly recommend typing it out, because if you're submitting this form along with a lot of documentation, and you have a whole bunch of other people also submitting forms, if the forms are hard to read, then there's a greater chance that the form will be filled out incorrectly, that you might have to go back and get something fixed. That basically your case will take a long time, or take longer, I guess. All kind of immigration cases take a long time, but yeah. So the thing is, if you can fill it out, it's neater. It's it increases your chance that your case will be finished sooner and with fewer mistakes. So that's the I-130 form itself. So if we can kind of go back, we look at the instruction form. Oops. So the instruction form actually is fairly comprehensive. USCIS actually is really good about that. So I mean, the form itself, I think, was like 2 pages. The instruction kind of form for this is actually 7 pages. So I mean, it's basically 3 times longer than the actual form itself. So you can print this out. You can print out the actual I-130 itself, and yeah. And one last thing I'll show you is that where is it? Over here, I guess, over on the far right, you have links to other forms also. So if you wanted to apply for a passport, here's a DS-11, application for U.S. passport, DS-230, application for immigrant visa. Yeah, so if you need to find other forms that USCIS puts out, you can go to this link up here, which says Home Arrow Forms. And I mean, here's a whole bunch of forms that you can basically look at and download and stuff, and each of these forms will have its own little page describing what it's used for, what instructions might come with it, and so on and so on. So that's the basic idea. You can download forms as PDFs for immigration, California courts. I work a lot with the Veterans Administration too, and there's a lot of forms there that are available as PDFs. So the general idea is, if you're trying to look for a form, then go ahead and Google it and see if the form number pops up. A lot of times the form will just be available online. It's just a matter of trying to find it.
Hope that was helpful, everybody. If you want to check out my other videos, feel free. Or if you want to visit me online, go to andychenlaw.com, and I will talk to you later.